Welcome students. So students, we are going to learn very important topic today, that is linking the tables. Okay, so in my previous class I guess I have showed you how to link two tables, but today we are going to link the table as well as we are going to learn today how to generate a uh, you know generate the data using queries. Okay, that is something we are going to learn today. So linking the tables, and then we will generate a query, and using that query we are going to generate a table basically. How to do that? Okay, so just for your practice purpose, I'm doing everything from the scratch. So I'll be creating two tables, I'll be linking the tables, and finally then I'll be generating a query. I'll generate a query through which we will get the data. So let us begin to first create a table. So in the database section, you have to go to tables, click on tables. Then there's an option that is create table in design view. Let me quickly enter the field name, that is ID, and this is going to be a integer value because I'm going to make this as a primary key. Then let us have the student information. So let us create a table for student. Okay, so that is a roll number. Even this I'm going to keep it as integer. Then the student name. Okay, and we are also going to adjust the field properties out here. So for name I'm going to keep the maximum length. Okay, that is 100, so I'm going to keep it as it is. Then we have class. So for class also it is going to be the text data type, and I'm going to change the length of the field, that is 20. That is user can only enter max to max 20 characters. This is the length that I have set using the field properties. Okay, one more thing I'm going to do out here is go to roll number, and I'm going to make the entry required as yes, which means that this particular field cannot be left blank. Let me go to name. Even name is something that we require. We cannot keep this as blank, so I'm going to make this as yes. Name, then class and section, both I'm going to make this the entry required is yes. Then I'm going to have this section. So for section I'm going to have 20, that's the length, and entry required I'm going to keep it as yes. And then we can have something called as like the email. So email, okay, it can be left blank. Maybe few of them, they don't have the email ID. So entry required will be no. So the user can leave this particular field as a blank, but I'm going to set the default value, and the default value will be no email ID. So basically, if you do not enter any mail ID out here, by default, a default value, that is no email ID, will be entered in this particular field. Okay, so these are the things that I've set. I've set the field properties as well. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this ID as my primary key. So ID is now my primary key. Right click and then give, there's an option that is a primary key. Just need to click on that. So this is all set and done, and I'm going to close this, say yes, and I'm going to name this as student. Okay, so I have just created one table. Name of the table is student table. Then I'm going to create one more table, and this particular table is going to hold the marks of the students. Okay, so I'm going to say ID. So this is going to be the primary key, and I'm going to keep this as integer. And then very important is I'm going to have one more field name, that is the student ID. Now student ID is going to act as a foreign key out here. Student ID, which means that it is a reference key, a referential integrity, basically, which means that whatever ID we have for the student, the same number we should have it out here, because using this student ID we are going to connect the two tables. So I'm going to keep this as integer. So this is going to act as a foreign key for us, and then we can straight away, we do not need all the name class section out here for the marks, because already there is a table which we are using it to store the basic information of the students, and this particular table is going to only hold the marks of the students. So I'm going to give the names of the subjects, so that is English. I'm going to keep this as a whole number. Okay, let us assume that. And Hindi is also going to be integer. Then we have, maths, even this is going to be integer. Then science, even this is going to be the integer. Then social, and computers. Okay, so these are the subjects, these are the fields, and the name of the fields are the subject names. So you can see that in this particular table we do not have any text field, we have all the fields which are actually integers. Fine. And what I'm going to do is, okay, one thing I forgot to do it in the previous table, that is id. I'm going to set it as primary key, so this id is going to be the primary key for this particular table. And the auto value, I'm going to make this as yes, auto value. Now auto value, yes, means what happens is you do not have to enter anything into id. Okay, you do not have to feed any data, automatically a unique number will be entered in this particular field. Okay, so user doesn't really have to do anything into this. So now I'm going to close this. So I made id as my primary key, and there is nothing called as, like, give a right click and make this as a foreign key. That is a different procedure we have. So student id is as it is. Okay, so I'm going to close this and name this as, basically it should be something like exam. Okay, now we have two tables, that is student table. And what I'm going to do is give a right click on student, go to edit, and go to id. And over here also I'm going to make this auto value as yes, because then we do not have to enter anything, automatically a number will be entered in this particular field. That's how auto value basically works. I'm going to say yes. And now let us just double click on student, and now you can see that ID is auto filled. You do not have to enter anything out here. Straight away I will just feed the data, that is roll number, and a name. I can give any name, class, and section. And you can also see that default value, that is no email ID, is by default present. That if you want, you can change this. If the student has a mail ID, you can feed the mail ID, or else you can just leave it as whatever it is. Okay, then I give. Now please understand that id out here, you can see that's 0. It starts from 0, 1, 2, and then it goes on. Okay, so over here this is Vijay. There's another student, maybe it belongs to class 11th A, because this particular table is going to store all the data of all the students. So 0, and then you can see that 1, automatically these numbers are getting generated. Okay, and this is going to increment now. So it started from 0, that is the primary key, and these are the data that I have fed. Now there are two students at present. And now before I go ahead, one thing that we need to do is form a relationship. Okay, that is okay, we have the student table out here. Just click out here, that is add tables, and then go to exam, click on add, click on close. Okay, so now we have both the tables out here. Basically it only shows a box in which there are all the fields. And now, as I said, this id, which is a primary key, this is going to get connected to the student id. So what I need to do is give a okay, just a minute. Give a click on ID, keep the left key pressed, the button pressed of the mouse, drag it and bring it to the student ID, and then release the button. Okay, one thing that this is self-referring, I'm going to just delete this, just a minute, and I'm going to include everything once again. So let me just include everything, that is exam, and then student, and close. Okay, so we have this student, and this is exam. These are the two tables. And now this ID, let me bring this out here. This student ID is basically will get connected to this particular field, that is the student ID of exam. So ID of student gets connected to the student ID of exam. So the moment you do that, you can see that these two tables are now connected. And there is something shown over here, that is 1 out here and n out here. Okay, 1 means 1 and n means many. So this is 1 to many relationship. So this particular table is in the form of 1 to many, which means that one student will have many exams. This is just for one exam that we're doing, but this table will hold the data for all the exams for all the subjects. Also, one student will have many subjects as well. And that is the reason why we have this as 1 to many. Okay. So the relationship that we have out here is 1 to many. Please remember this. Now let me just close this. So what we have done just before closing, this student ID and this ID should be the same. So student ID is basically a foreign key. And what is a foreign key? Foreign key is a primary key but of some other table. Okay, so whatever value we have over here for ID, the same value we should have it out here, otherwise it is going to throw an error. Please remember that. So let me just close this now. Okay, so we have entered the data for the students, and now let us enter the data for the exam. And I'm going to open this, both the tables I'm going to keep it open. Okay, so now please understand this, both the tables are in front of you. I have entered two students and the ID, the primary key was 0 and 1. So now over here, the student ID and this ID should be equal. So I'll be entering the marks for the student ID 0. So if I say student ID 0, to which student am I referring to? So that is 0 is out here and the name of the student is Ajay, the class is 10, section is A. And this is how they are getting referred. Okay, so student ID 0 and then I can just give the marks out here. Right? And then the next I can have is 1. So if I say 1, so 1 is basically, you can see the ID, student ID and this ID, that is 1 out here. It is referring to Vijay. And then I can give the marks to the students. And now you can see that, we are not giving any kind of data out here. I mean the name, class, section. This is only used for feeding the marks. And this is the table that is used only for the basic information. But then we are connecting these two tables now. Okay, so I'll just change this marks, that is to 50, and you can see 0 1 0 1, this should be equal. If I try to give something like 2, okay, and try to feed the data, what is going to happen? It is going to throw an error. You can see this is an error. Why we have this error is because there is no 2 over here. ID and student ID should be equal, but there is the number 2 is missing out here, right? And that is the reason why this is not going to work. So I'm going to just undo this. Okay, so now I'm going to close this and this as well. So we have entered two records in both the tables. Now the thing is, how will I come to know, like if I open the exam table and you can see there are only numbers. I don't see the student name, class, section, and then I have to see, okay, this is the student ID 0. So let me open the student ID. Okay, 0 belongs to Ajay, class 10A, and so on. This is not really that feasible way to do it, right? It is very difficult to understand the data. So what we are going to do is, now we are going to generate a query using a query wizard, and using that query, we are going to display the data in a form which is very easily understood. Okay, let us go ahead now and let us generate a query. So for that, you have to click on the queries, and the first option that we are going to use is use wizard to create query. That's the second option basically out here. Click on that and a window will be in front of you. And now what we have to do is, see, by default exam data is showing to you, that is exam table, and these are the fields in the exam. First I'm going to go to student. You just click on that and both the tables will be shown to you. So over here in the tables drop down, text student, and now it will show all the fields for the student. What I require over here is the ID. In fact, I require everything. So if you require everything, I can do it one by one or directly click on this. So everything will be included. If I click on this, everything, all the fields will be selected. Then I'm going to select the exam, and from exam, I require the student ID. From student ID and all the other fields, I don't require this ID. Why? Because I'm only concerned with ID and student ID. Okay, so from here I'm going to include everything into the, these are the fields that are selected now. Okay, fields in the query. Then click on next. The second option is sorting order. The first sorting order I want is according to the student ID. Okay, so the data will be sorted as per the ID in ascending or descending, whichever you want, you can do it. Then if I want, after that sorting, if I want to sort it through the roll number, then it will be in that form, and so on. There are two more options you can have. Click on next. Then we require a very important thing, that is matching fields we have to provide out here. So there is like fields out here, and these are all the fields that we selected. What I need to do out here is student.id means student is the name of the table and ID is the name of the field. So student.id should be equal to, okay, this should be equal to, and it is, okay, okay, basically we really don't require anything out here. Just a minute. Sorting, that is should be equal to, is equal to, okay, let me just keep this as it is. Then okay, you do not have to give the search over here, because this is like, particularly if you really want data to be displayed for a particular student. So in that case, you can take a student ID, and that value you can specify out here, so only the data for that particular student will be shown to you. Okay, for example, if I make this as a 0, okay, and I just go to next, and then this is analysis. First I'm going to show you how the things are going to work. And analysis, like, you can give the ID some different name. Okay, to roll number I can give roll space number. So we are just giving another name to these fields, and for name I can say student name, something of that sort. Okay, and rest of the things I'm going to keep it as it is. Then click on finish, and this is the data that we have. And now there is a problem out here. Okay, since I only search for 0, still we have two records that are being shown to me. Okay, why is that so? Because we haven't used now what we need to do next is, okay, to rectify that problem. Okay, just give a right click. See, this is the query. By default, that's the name. You can go ahead and we can rename this, but I'm going to keep it as default. So first thing is, to rectify that issue, go to, give a right click, go to edit, and this is going to open this, like, a design view basically. Okay, and what we forgot to do is, what we need to do out here is specify, connect that primary key and the foreign key. So where is my foreign key? That is student ID, right? And for student, the ID is the primary key. I'm going to connect the same thing we are going to do out here. Connect this, and this is very important. And so I'm going to remove the conditions. Right now you don't have to focus on this, but just remember that now I've connected the primary key and the foreign key. So click on yes, I've saved it. Now if I double click onto this, and now you can see that this is a perfect data that we have in front of us. Why? Because see, ID 0, roll number 1, that was name was Ajay, class 10A, email ID we did not provide it, and these are the marks of the student. Okay, now you can see the student ID and ID both. Okay, we can remove one of that. But now this is like a data which is quite understandable. This is for Vijay, and these are the marks of the student with the name Vijay. So this is just a small activity, students. So you can go ahead and just practice this. I'm taking a lot of practicals in the school as well, and without the practice, this won't really, the concept won't be really clear to you. So please go ahead and practice this. Only then you can understand this. Okay. So I'm hoping you to complete this activity, and for your exams, please complete the practical files as soon as possible, and then submit it. Last date of submission is, by the way, it was 5th, but now it is being made as, I guess, on 30th November. So please complete the practical files and submit it. That's it for today. Bye for now.